your DIY Huntress, and this is
Sam's dad from DIY Huntress.
And what are we doing today, Dad?
We're replacing these through-wall AC units with these cool
Mr. Cool split
units.
Yes, nailed it.
Nailed it.
Let's get started. Big shout out to Mr. Cool for their help with this cool video. So you may remember this from my guest room makeover video on my channel, but when we bought this house, pretty much almost every room came with these in-wall AC units, and honestly, they're not energy efficient, so I decided that I wanted to get rid of them. And instead I opted for something a little smarter and more energy efficient, aka my Mr. Cool split units, but we'll talk about that a little more in a little bit. First, let's talk about removing the AC units. They were in these like metal sleeves that were installed into the actual side of the house. So Dad and I worked together to get rid of those metal sleeves and to basically create a gaping hole in the side of my house. But once we had a hole in the side of my house, we decided to divide and conquer, and I cut some new boards that my dad then installed as framing so that we had some space to install some new drywall and to close up the hole, and you get it. So once that framing was in, we then focused our attention outside.
Hammer on the floor. No tool belts, of course. We think this is tool time.
No, Dad, this is DIY Huntress. But anyway, okay, so while Dad closed up the outside of the house, which included adding some plywood, some insulation, some vapor barrier, whatever else he did out there. Oh, some shingles too. Shingles are important because I have cedar shingles on the side of my house, so he definitely replaced those as well. And while he worked on that, I worked on the super fun task of closing up the hole on the inside of the wall, which meant super fun drywall work for me. Nice job! So I'm not going to spend too much time on this portion of this project because I actually had a pretty cool idea for an accent wall on this wall, and I'm going to be tackling that on my channel in my next video. So definitely make sure to subscribe to my channel if you're interested in seeing what I did to this wall and how I did it and what it looks like now. So once all of the gaping holes in my house were closed up, it was time to move on to installing my Mr. Cool DIY mini split systems in my house. These units can function as an AC, a heater, and a fan, and they come in either single zone or multi-zone options, but we'll cover that in detail later in the video because I did end up installing both types of these units throughout my entire house. Each DIY mini split unit comes with a condenser and wall handlers, but the number of wall handlers will differ depending on how many you need in your own house. They're considered ductless units too, which means I won't have to run any ducts through any of my walls or ceilings to install them. They each connect directly to the condenser and are actually really self-explanatory to install because they come with instructions, templates, and didn't need any fancy tools to set up. But enough nerding out, we'll talk about these a little more throughout the video. Let's talk about install. To get started with the install, I first measured exactly where I wanted my unit to go, and once I had those measurements, I then used a template that came with my actual unit, taped it to the wall, and drilled any holes that I needed to drill for the unit right through that template. Next up, I then attached the bracket that would actually hold the unit to the wall and drilled them into the wall through all of those pre-drilled holes I made through the template, making sure that everything was nice and level. Next up, it was time to unpack the actual wall handler itself. This was actually pretty awesome because everything is just like connected really neatly. All I had to do was unbundle the electrical wire, and then I taped together all of the components on the inside so that everything fits through the hole that I'm about to make in the side of my house, which is funny to think about now that I'm talking about it because we just closed up all the holes on the side of my house. But anyway, once everything was bundled together nicely, I just added one more little layer of tape on the end to make sure that everything stayed together when I was threading it through the hole in the side of my house. And at this point, it was time to start getting ready to actually install this unit. While no fancy tools were really needed for this install, one sort of fancy tool I actually ended up needing was a giant hole saw, and Drilling through this old plaster was such a pain, and of course I ran into an issue where I drilled into this weird 2x4 that was here from when we framed up an old window. It's not structural at all, so I just used a multi-tool to cut around it. But once I was able to get that out of my way, I was able to finish this hole and drill through the side of my house. I was also able to install a plastic sleeve that came with the unit, and this is just going to help keep everything nice and neat and to help protect the inside of my walls. Once that sleeve was in place, though, it was time to thread all of those lovely, nicely, and neatly bundled components that you saw a little while ago through the opening and then hang the actual wall unit on the bracket. And honestly, it was so easy as Sam can do it. At this point, the inside work was done, and it was time to focus my efforts on the outside of the house. One thing that I did get with these units was a line hide set to hide all of the wiring and the copper, and I actually added this to the side of my house before hooking anything up because this just made my life so much easier. But once all of that was installed, it was then time to focus on actually installing the wall units to my Mr. Cool condenser. Now, the one that you're seeing here is a multi-zone, which means that it can handle more than one unit at a time. And in terms of the actual electrical hookup to my house, I'm not gonna lie, I did hire a licensed electrician to do that part. But in terms of actually hooking up the unit to the condenser, that part was super simple. I got that. In fact, every single wall unit has color-coded wires that match up perfectly with all of the color-coded goodness inside of the condenser, so it was super, super easy to install by myself. Once that wiring was done, it was time to move on to hooking up the copper as well as the drainage pipes. All right, Dad, ready?
Child labor. Ma, help! Help!
He's such a brat. Okay, so in terms of the copper piping, as you can see, we are unraveling it because it came kind of bundled up. One thing to note is that you can get these copper pipes in different lengths, and it's really important to choose the length that's going to work the best for your unit because they are pre-charged lines, which means that they cannot be altered at all. And that's kind of part of the reason why they're more affordable units, because you do end up having some excess line left over that you have to bundle behind your unit. You'll see that in a little bit. But yes, if you're going to look into getting these units for your own home, you may want to consider doing your research on how much you need for your line set before actually starting your installation. Once that line set was ready to roll, though, Dad was able to connect the copper pipes to one another, and just like everything else, these were color-coded, so they were very easy to figure out what went where. Another thing that my dad did, and you can't really see it well right here in this particular view, is he also attached the extension for the drainage for the unit while he was attaching the copper piping together. It just made so much sense to do everything at once. Now, typically, you would kind of run all of the line set with that drainage hose, but because this run was so long from the actual wall unit to the condenser, we did decide to customize the line set, and I used a Dremel just to create a small little opening right in that elbow in the corner so that the drain could come right out of there from the unit, so that it didn't have to travel far and we didn't have to worry about water getting backed up in there. It's able to just drip directly from the unit outside to the ground. But once that little thing was taken care of, it was then time to close up the line hide and run that line set all the way from that wall unit to the condenser. Once that line set had reached that condenser, it was time for Dad to remember how to match colors again and to attach the matching copper line sets to one another on the condenser and then tighten them up. Man, kudos to him because he climbed under the deck to get this shot because he didn't want to block the shot from the other side where the camera was. He's becoming such a good YouTuber. Good job.
Yeah. Now for the fun part.
What's the fun part?
Me getting out.
Good luck. See you later. Okay, moment of truth. Wow, that's freezing cold. Woo! After a successful test run on the unit, the last couple of steps included adding some of this like sticky black anti-rattle stuff to the connections, and then I was able to close up the rest of the line set and call this a project. Oh my goodness, I am so excited. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention. This is really cool. So these Mr. Cool units are actually able to connect to Wi-Fi with this nifty little USB. And once you plug that in, you are able to control your units from your phone. So even if I'm not home, or if I wanted to, you know, cool or heat my shop before I get in there every day, because you know my shop definitely has one of these fancy units, I can do so. This app is really awesome because it tells you the temperature of the current room, as well as allows you to control the unit fully remotely, which I think is really, really, pun intended, but also not intended, cool. Let's have a meeting. Team meeting. Okay. Hey friends. So I'm in the process of putting together all of the clips for this particular video that I'm talking to you about and organizing them before they go to the editing room. Editing floor? No, editing room, right? That's right. I don't know. I don't know. But what I'm realizing is that, like, as I'm putting all these clips together, I feel like I didn't do a great job of explaining, like, all of the different types of condensers and wall units that I put all over my house. So we're gonna take a little field trip around the house, which is, like, currently a disaster zone, so pardon the mess, please don't judge. There are lots of unfinished projects. I'll get to them soon. Like, for example, this half demoed deck that needs to be stained, but I'll finish it eventually. If I had $1 for every time I said I was gonna finish a project eventually in this house, I probably have enough money to buy a new house, but whatever, I'm on a tangent. So we're gonna go for a little walk, a little journey, a little field trip around my house. I'm gonna show you these different condensers, why they're different, what they look like, and what they mean, so that hopefully that helps anybody who is looking to install a split unit in their house and get rid of the in-wall or in-window ACs like I did. So yeah, let's take a walk. Okay, so this is one of the units. This is a single zone unit, and what that means is, as you can see, there are only 2 connections there for the line, and that is because this can only run 1 unit, which is, oh god, so messy back here, the unit in my workshop. So let me show you what that looks like on the inside. All right, friends, last time you saw my workshop, it was in my house tour, and now, oh god, it's basically a pseudo kitchen. Woo! Oh, it's really dark in here. Let's brighten this up a little bit. Okay, so as you can see up there is my wall unit that is in my workshop, and that 1 unit is right, that box right there, an 18K unit. So it's a pretty powerful unit. This unit is run by that single condenser. So now I'm actually going to show you some of the other condensers which are running multiple units and what they look like. So let's go. All right, so unlike the other condenser, which was only able to handle that 1 wall unit, this one is a multi-zone unit. So I popped off the side to show you. What that means is that there are multiple connections here for multiple wall units. So just like I showed in the install video, or the install portion of this video, anytime there is a gray and a blue cap, that means that is 1 connection for 1 line set, right? Because each line set had those 2 copper pipes in them. So down here, as you can see, I have 1 and 2 units hooked up to this condenser, which is what makes it a multi-zone condenser. And right now, those 2 units that are powered up by that dude are in my kitchen and dining room and in my guest room. So yeah, I also have another one of these guys on the other side of the house, which is running 3 separate wall units for the other 3 bedrooms in the house. All right, friends, let's have a final hang sesh of the video. Oh my god, that like hurt. Why does everything hurt? This is what getting old feels like, huh? Yeah, I don't know. I hope that taking that little tour around and checking out those condensers was helpful. I just feel like I didn't do a great job when I was watching about the clips of explaining the difference in the units that I chose and like why I chose different units. And I'm a very visual learner, so I thought it might be really helpful to take a little journey around and check those units out and why they're different. Speaking of learning though, if there's anything that I hope this video showed you, it is that I am no expert in HVAC, that is for sure. And if I'm able to install a DIY unit such as the ones from Mr. Cool, then I feel like literally anybody can. And yes, I definitely had some hands on deck and some help. I was actually really impressed by how easy the instructions were to follow. In fact, it is like ice cold in that house when we are running the air conditioners. So to me, like that is a sign of success personally. But anyway, I know I've done a lot of talking, so we're gonna wrap this video up. I actually had a lot of fun getting to learn all things HVAC for this project. So big shout out to Mr. Cool for providing me with these DIY split units and for allowing me to learn, not only learn, but like show my learning process and pseudo teach other people how to do this. And thank you all for, checking out this video, being patient with me, and also trusting my own learning process, because that's kind of the fun of DIY projects. You learn and you grow and you try new things, and then you're like, hey, that wasn't so bad. I'm gonna do that again. Although, like, honestly, I don't really need to install any more split units in this house at any point, so I probably won't be doing this again, but you know what I mean. I hope that this video was helpful for someone out there, and if you are that special someone, I hope that you will subscribe to my channel and stick around for more videos. There are so many projects that need to be done in this house, if you can't tell by the destroyed deck in the background. I still have so much work to do in this house, even though we are moved in full time, so there will definitely be a ton of content coming at you real soon. I hope that you will stick around to check that out. But in the meantime, friends, you're awesome. You're all awesome. And I'll see you soon for a new project. But until then, friends, happy DIYing.